Let's go ahead and piss a bunch of people off. Okay. I guess it's time for that. It always seems to be time to piss people off these days. But let's do it. Are you guys ready for this? Here we go. Executive order on protecting access to reproductive health care services. So, you've probably seen reporting on this. Joe Biden issues executive order protecting abortion after evil Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. Let's see what the executive order actually says. My hair is sticking to my forehead and it's bothering you. Well, it's not. It's just I've got some really short hairs up front. They just sit a little different there. I hope that's better. I hope that helps. I hope that helps you in your life. By the authority vested in me as the Constitution, laws of the United States of America, which can be summed up in one word. And in it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1 policy. Nearly 50 years ago, Roe versus Wade articulated the United States Constitution's protection of women's fundamental right to make reproductive health care decisions. Nope. It's not what it did at all. Literally, again, the only fundamental constitutional right contemplated by Roe was a right for a pregnant woman to kill their baby with the assistance of a doctor. That's it. None of this vaunted reproductive health care decisions. Your other reproductive health care decisions aren't protected in any way like Roe versus like abortion was. Not in any way. It's an insane disparity. No other medical procedure is given this level of protection. No other fundamental right was given the protection that Roe gave abortion. Not speech, not press, not religion, not guns, not freedom from unreasonable searches, not a right to an attorney, not a right to remain silent. All of those things have actual law, case law, and statutes on the books that, if they were applied in the same way to abortion, would be considered facially unconstitutional under Roe. It's crazy how protected killing a baby was under Roe. Nothing in the Constitution got that level of protection. Absolutely nothing. And whatever you think about the right to an abortion, and again, there's tons of people who think that there should be a fundamental right to an abortion. It's a fine opinion to have. Roe didn't do what they keep saying it did. It's a big problem with this. But all fundamental rights have been and are routinely pierced within the Constitution, even when it says that they can't be. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, except under this giant list of infringements. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Well, except for a whole shitload of laws abridging the freedom of speech. The free exercise of religion. The free press. All of these are abridged by laws constantly. Abortion was not. It had this unique test called the undue burden test, which the court specifically ruled was unconstitutional, by the way. But the undue burden test made it so that anything that stood as what a hurdle that would be a quote unquote undue burden on the mother was invalid under the Constitution, just automatically. This included things like a mandatory ultrasound, for example. Gotta have an ultrasound beforehand. No, that's an undue burden. Wait, what? Why? What makes that unduly burdensome? Keeping a list. Demanding a specific reason for the termination of the pregnancy, right? Why? Was it rape? Was it incest? Whatever. Undue burden. Notification of the father. Undue burden. Notification of parents for minors. Undue burden. All of this stuff. And only Roe versus Wade gets this, or only fucking abortion got this treatment. It was hands down the most protected right in the entire country. And it's not mentioned in the Constitution. It's not contemplated in debates about the Constitution. It's not mentioned in the Federalist Papers. Nothing of the sort. And no other medical procedure got this. It's crazy. So again, wherever you fall on Roe versus Wade is fine, or on the idea of a right to abortion is fine, but know what was happening, because it's misrepresented constantly. And that should bother you. That should bother everyone. Okay, so here we go. These deeply private decisions should not be subject to government interference. Yet today, fundamental rights to privacy, autonomy, freedom, and equality have been denied to millions of women across the country. Well, actually, nope. None of these have been denied to women in any way. Men don't have privacy in their healthcare decisions, so there's no equality there. Autonomy, women are still autonomous. They're still free. And they still have effectively equality. In fact, they may have been returned to equality. Eliminating the right recognized in Roe has already had and will continue to have devastating implications for women's health and public health more broadly. Access to reproductive health care services is now threatened for millions of Americans. Actually, no. Reproductive health care services, access to that is just as good, if not better, than it was before. Access to abortion services is threatened for millions of Americans. That's true. But reproductive health care services are just fine. You can get as much health care for going through reproduction today as you could 4 weeks ago. Wasn't Roe a pseudonym? Some lack of privacy. Yeah, Jane Roe is like John Doe. Her real name was Norma McCreary. And oh, by the way, she also she was it not Norma McCreary? What was it? Norma McCorvey. Norma McCorvey. By the way, she lied about the circumstances relating to her pregnancy. Said it was a product of a gang rape. It was not, but said it was because that made the case more favorable. So she admitted that later when she changed her entire stance on abortion later in life. Anyway, whew. Again, a big problem with Roe. All right, here we go. Access, yeah. And especially for those who live in states that are banning or severely restricting abortion care, women's health clinics are being forced to close. Nope, they're not being forced to close. Remember, all of those women's health clinics said that abortion was a tiny percentage of their business. Barely even noticed. All the other stuff that they did was their true business. But now abortion shut down, boom, they're all gone. It's amazing. Amazing. The level of misinformation that has been happening on abortion for the past 50 years is off the fucking charts. Including clinics that offer other preventative healthcare services such as contraception. Well, how could they be closing? Leaving many communities without access to critical reproductive healthcare services. That's right. You can't get contraception anywhere. That's true. Women seeking abortion care, especially those in low-income, rural, or other underserved communities, remember they really want to abort black babies. Now have to travel to jurisdictions where services remain legal, notwithstanding the costs or risks. Yes, that's how it goes. If I want legalized weed, I have to drive somewhere that has legalized weed. Yep. It's amazing how that happens. In the face of this health crisis, the federal government is taking action to protect healthcare service delivery and promote access to critical reproductive healthcare services, including abortion. It remains the policy of my administration to support women's right to choose and to protect and defend reproductive rights. They're literally the opposite of reproductive rights, but okay. Doing so is essential to justice, equality, and our health, safety, and progress as a nation. Okay, so we've got the definitions. Agency means any authority of the United States that is an agency under this section. Term reproductive healthcare services means medical, surgical, counseling, or referral services relating to the human reproductive system, including services relating to pregnancy or the termination of a pregnancy. Protecting access to reproductive healthcare systems within 30 days of the date of this order. Secretary of Health and Human Services shall submit a report to the president. Okay, we're finally to the substantive part. There's going to be a report. I love how the fucking government works. These reports cost millions of dollars and just say whatever the person wanted them to say in the first place. Identifying potential actions to protect and expand access to abortion care, including medication abortions. This is the main one here, by the way. This is not outlawed currently, and in most places is not treated the same way. And I would argue that medication abortion is fundamentally different than the abortion procedures that happened at a place like Planned Parenthood. And I think that it's very possible we do see a more recognized right to a medication abortion than we saw for any other type of abortion. And people may not be comfortable with that, but I think there's a distinct difference between taking a pill that will terminate a pregnancy and having someone shove a tube into your vagina and vacuum out a baby. I think those are different things. So I think we're going to see that fight in the next several years for sure. How can this be an executive order? Because you can make an executive order for whatever you want. And then the question is it constitutional? Okay, here you go. Same result. That's true. It's the same result. But here's the thing. Briefly, why I think this is an important distinction. This is critical. In every other privacy right recognized by the United States, in every other privacy right, the moment you involve a third party, and in particular a business entity third party, your right to privacy is forfeit. When you deposit a check at the bank, all of that information that's on the check, that is now not private because the privacy was between you and the other person you were conducting your transaction with, right? Me and Joe, the crack dealer. So I write a check to Joe, the crack dealer. That's good logic, of course. He goes and deposits it into his bank. His bank has to see who's on the check, who wrote the check, what accounts it come from, all that stuff. And then they communicate it. Now you've got a business record. There's a business necessity to see this information. And therefore, boom, that information is accessible by the government, usually at some sort of subpoena request or something like that. Sometimes they obtain a warrant. Sometimes they don't actually have to. You don't have a Fourth Amendment privacy interest in that information. Even though it's banking, something that every American believes should be private is their banking affairs. Because you involve the bank, the government can just get the information from the bank. Every other privacy interest is obliterated by the inclusion of a third party, particularly a business third party. automatically obliterated. Emails where there's a server that hosts the email, you don't have much privacy interest there at all. Why would you? There's a server host. Now, the content of the emails may still be private because they don't have a business reason, right, to look at the content of your emails unless you give them access to that. Like maybe maybe you agree to marketing, right? You agree to marketing based on the content of your email. If you overlook the terms of service, suddenly they now have a business interest in the content of your email to use AI to generate targeted ads. For example, Google, Alexa, Alexa, commit suicide, please. Did that work? That's a joke, YouTube, by the way. There's no one named Alexa, though that name doesn't exist except for Amazon products. So anyway, I just bring this up for this very critical point of Fourth Amendment law that unless you have studied the Fourth Amendment, you may not know that once you involve a third party, the phone company, this is why the police can always know who you've called. They can't necessarily get recordings of the calls or what was said, but they can put PIN registers. It's much easier now. They used to put a physical PIN register that would log the numbers that came through your line. Who were you calling? Who was calling you? And that because you shared that with the phone company so that they could connect you, that was their business interest. You had no privacy interest in who you called or who called you at all. Police could just get it. So anyway, abortion was uniquely protected in this way. But a medication abortion, they can maybe track who bought a pill, but they can't prove who took one. That's a different question. So I think we're going to see I would make, like, if I was hired to, and I would probably not take the case, but in the hypothetical event that I was hired to do an argument for medication abortion, I would make the argument that it's distinctly different, has much stronger Fourth Amendment protections baked into it because it does not involve a third party for the act of taking the pill. Maybe I just go as a woman, for example, and get one of those pills in case I decide I want to take it. Or maybe I get one and give it to a friend because who knows? I would make that argument. And I think you can make a very convincing argument that it's different and uniquely protectable from the overall general sort of common idea of abortion procedures that happen in doctors' offices. And if anybody wants to know, I've had this stance, I think, for the past, 8 years or so. So that's consistent with my opinion on where that goes. You could probably find me talking about it in a similarly autistic way somewhere else. Okay, so next, to otherwise protect and expand access to the full range of reproductive healthcare services, including actions to enhance family planning services such as access to emergency contraception. So emergency contraception tends to be morning after pills. Okay. Again, morning after pills, probably even more protected than medication abortions. Morning after pills can be issued whether or not a pregnancy has been established. So that's the whole point. Typically, it's a preventative measure is the idea. But they have different levels of pill that go out further and further and further. And at some point, those transition into an abortificant versus a preventative thing. But that's not contemplated by Roe. So currently, those are going to be probably attempted to be regulated by the state. But the legislature could just pass a law under the Commerce Clause where they're the ones regulating this shit. They could do that. And then the states would have to pass a different law. And then you'd have an argument over the Supremacy Clause, and we'd figure it out in the same way we figure out all of this other shit. Okay, here we go. Identifying ways to increase. So this is the order, by the way. I'm not reading all the news stories about it. This is the actual order. Identifying ways to increase out. This is still the report. Ways to increase outreach and education about access to reproductive healthcare services, including by launching a public awareness initiative to provide timely and accurate information about such access, which shall share. So look out for PSAs on PBS, big stupid billboards that talk about abortion rights and shit all over the place, funded by the government. That's coming. Share information on how to obtain free or reduced cost reproductive healthcare services through Health Resources and Services Administration, funded health centers, Title X clinics, and other providers, and include promoting awareness of and access to the full range of contraceptive services. So this is where they're going to have to focus all of their major efforts, though, is on contraceptive and family planning services. And by the way, fine. If we want a government that does not want us to breed, and they want to try and convince people not to, okay, the government can do that. That's well within the government's purview. As well as know your rights information for those seeking or providing reproductive health care services. And here's the third part, identifying steps to ensure that all patients, including pregnant women and those expecting pregnancy loss, such as miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies, ectopic pregnancies were not considered abortions. Halsey, I don't remember if I talked about this, but Halsey said something so fucking stupid the other day. She said that her abortion allowed her to live so she could have a son later on. Halsey had a child that died in utero, and they had to remove the dead child from her body. And she considered that to be an abortion. And she was glad she wasn't forced to carry the dead baby to term. Nobody on fucking earth thinks that that's an abortion, and no one is opposed to the removal of a verified dead baby inside of you, because you have to remove the baby. God, these people. In a similar way, ectopic pregnancies are not considered abortions. They're not, like, these are the types of pregnancies that are legitimate risks to the mother, and they're medical procedures that often involve removing a portion of the uterus. So ectopic pregnancies, if you don't know, that's where implantation occurs outside of the uterus. For whatever reason, a fertilized egg, basically you get fertilization in a fallopian tube. Sometimes the baby will the baby will implant in a fallopian tube. That baby will not live most of the time. Just automatically, it won't grow, it won't get the nutrition. Sometimes you get them leaving the fallopian tube, not entering the uterus, and attaching to like a kidney or a liver. It's really weird. There's some very weird edge cases that have happened. They're extremely rare. But they have to remove these because the mother will die. They will hemorrhage and die if the baby is allowed to grow there. The corneal pregnancy is similar. That's where it implants right where the fallopian tube meets the uterus. And in that case, when a baby implants there and it grows, it will rupture the uterus, often killing the mother, long before delivery. What you have to do in those cases, a lot of times, is to remove part of the uterus. And in effect, cut off access to half of the eggs, because you have to cut off access to that ovary. It's a very unfortunate situation. They're absurdly rare, and they're not really considered abortions. Because they're not viable pregnancies. There have been a couple really weird instances where ectopic pregnancies actually did deliver babies. Again, the extreme minority of the extreme minority. People aren't opposed to that medical procedure. And that's not what's talked about. This is always what's brought up when women's rights to abortions are mentioned. This ain't it, champ. They're talking about contraceptive abortions 99.9% of the time. That's what people mean. When a woman goes, you know what? I just don't want this baby now. Boom, get it out. They're not talking about life-threatening pregnancies. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about ectopic pregnancies, corneal implantations. It's not what they mean. And again, miscarriage. Nothing to do with abortion. A woman miscarries and needs assistance in removing parts of the body because they'll rot and then the woman can get very sick and die. So sometimes they have to do a procedure to flush out the uterus, for lack of a better phrase. But that baby's long gone at that point. No one wants to force women to carry miscarriages to term. I don't know that they even can. It's such a weird fucking thing. They receive the full protections for emergency medical care afforded under the law, okay, including by considering updates to current guidance and obligations specific to emergency conditions and stabilizing care under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, and providing data for the Department of Health and Human Services concerning implementation of these efforts. Now, remember, this is all this 1, 2, 3 thing here. This is all in response to, you've got A. Here's B. This is all in the report. So all that is just part of a report about those things. So that's nothing. None of this is actually being implemented. A report about all of this stuff that I just read is being created. That's all. Next, to promote access to reproductive health care services, the Attorney General and the Counsel to the President shall convene a meeting of private pro bono attorneys, bar associations, and public interest organizations in order to encourage lawyers to represent and assist patients, providers, and third-party parties lawfully seeking these services throughout the country. Yeah, this is government is going to fund pro bono attorneys to challenge this ruling and bring about a new Roe. They're going to have an actual meeting, a cabal of pro bono attorneys, bar associations, and public interest organizations who will fund lawsuits to go to the Supreme Court to get a new Roe. That's what they want. With your tax dollars. Yep, exactly. And I said this when the opinion was first released. Roe going away does not mean the abortion issue is leaving the courts. This will be fought about and fought about and fought about. This is their sacred baby. This is the Dalai Lama on life support. Every effort will be expended to save this thing. Inner City Pigeon says, you do realize the term is flesh out, not flesh out. Not when you're talking about removing a baby from a uterus. They literally flesh it out of the uterus. Fleshing it out would be to develop it. Developing an idea is fleshing out. Flushing out means to usually insert a fluid to force things out of something else. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, they do it with a vacuum tube, basically. But so no, my syntax was correct there. Oh shit, here we go. Let me read a couple of these super chats real quick. Arno09, can I get a shout out to Black Heron Spirits and Solar Spirits, both local distilleries deep in the heart of Washington wine country. They both have menus online, so give them a Google and bump up their traffic a bit. That's Black Heron Spirits and Solar Spirits. Cheers to them. Keep making the good. All right, Leon Johansson. Roe versus Wade was based and liberal pilled All rights under the Constitution should be that powerful. They should be more powerful. Your rights under the Constitution should be undisputed. I agree. The government shouldn't be anywhere near your trigger finger or near your uterus. Maybe on the uterus, but that's not in the Constitution, not contemplated by the founders. And more importantly, there's a real question of when rights are conferred to a human. At what point do they deserve the protection from their state? Because if you're full libertarian, the non-aggression principle applies to a person at some point, right? So is a baby in utero entitled to the non-aggression principle? If so, then it's libertarian to protect that baby. If not, then it's not. That is Alito's argument, is that is a state-based decision to determine when life actually exists and when it's worth protecting. That the people of the state get to make that determination. And the problem that we have is that's not fleshed out anywhere. But again, I will briefly say, as in my argument on Destiny's channel, in which I was alone by myself against 3 other attorneys, all of whom were retarded, I pointed out very correctly that the English common law, since about the 1400s and continuing through American Supreme Court jurisprudence, has recognized property rights for babies who are conceived. And present property rights, meaning that they're not able to take possession physically because they're inside of a vagina, but once they pop out of the vagina, they get to take possession and are entitled to interest that would be earned on the value of the possession from the time that title conferred to them while in utero. Those cases go way back, way back. Property law has recognized the unborn as persons with rights for 600 years. It's a lot older than Roe. That being said, I don't know if that's right, but it is true. And there's a bunch of people who either don't know that or don't want to acknowledge it because it becomes uncomfortable with the idea that that thing inside of a woman has rights and we take them away without any representation for the thing inside the woman. We eliminate the entirety of their rights. Now, maybe they don't deserve rights. A reasonable position for people to take is that that doesn't deserve rights. Okay. If that's your position, put it down in an amendment and put it in the Constitution. Rights are conferred upon, or personhood is confirmed upon the birth of a baby. Once it passes the magical cervical curtain, it is now entitled to rights. The cervix is Harry fucking Potter, and it says, Insoliando, and poof, there's a soul in that baby, and now it matters. That's a reasonable position, by the way. People can have that position. But you got to define it. Right now, all the overturning of Roe did was it allowed states to determine when that occurs. I don't think birth is actually a very good measure because it's not objective in the slightest. It is arbitrary. Gestational age and birth are disconnected because we have babies born at 21 weeks, a little bit less sometimes, but in the 21st week, we'll say. And then we have babies born at 44 weeks. Well, what the fuck? I mean, one baby is twice as old. It has to wait twice as long for its rights to be conferred to it. That doesn't make sense. The one almost reasonable part of Casey was the idea of viability, because it technically tracks gestational age rather than birth. But viability was supposed to get earlier and earlier, and it never did. That was part of the problem with it. But if you want to put down in the Constitution a gestational age at which rights confer, again, makes much more sense. Maybe it's 6 weeks. Maybe it's 18 weeks. Maybe it's 26. I don't know. And you could say that a baby born at 22 weeks does not have any rights for 4 weeks of their intensive neonatal care. Again, I disagree with that, but other people don't. There are people who think that babies born should not be protected for a year after birth. But I'm just raising some of the general issues with this question. Medical realities and legal realities that exist that are always ignored in this. But yeah, back to Leon Johansson. Again, the sort of libertarian principle of fundamental rights being fundamental, I agree with. The question is, when does the baby get those rights? And that's a question that's not so clear. It's not so clear. I don't know the answer on that, by the way, but that's part of the argument. S. Asp, can you make an argument against Gomez? Shameful what happened today with a Ramsey County judge ruling Minnesota restrictions unconstitutional today. I have no idea what Gomez is. I'll have to look it up. See, Goody says, should have told them to hit like. It was at peak viewers before this shit, you bigot. Oh, I should have. By the way, if you like this stream, probably the wrong time to ask as I deliver uncomfortable conversation about abortion. But if you like this stream, please click the like button. After things like the Depp trial, very briefly, I'll explain this. Viewership goes from here, 80,000 people watching live, to like 5,000 to 10,000 people watching live. And what YouTube's AI sees is 90% of the people who were watching aren't watching. Maybe I shouldn't promote this as much. And channels like mine, who cover things regularly, but also have massive topical spikes like that go on for a long time, like Rittenhouse is several weeks, Johnny Depp trials 7 straight weeks. I mean, 8, if you buffer in some stuff on the ends. Going through that kind of fluctuation, even though the core audience of the channel has not changed, the AI just sees numbers changing dramatically. And it goes, whoa, maybe I shouldn't recommend this as much. One of the ways to counter that is to like the videos if you like them. If you don't like them, don't click the fucking button. But if you like them, please do. The other way to really help counteract that is to share video links off the platform. I really, really appreciate that. You have no idea how much that helps. Sharing them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Again, if you think other people would like them, that shit helps a ton. So those are the 2 big things you can do to help out not just me, but any YouTuber that you like. Those things mean so much to us. And I hate asking for them because it's always awkward. But I will say we're at 3,785 likes. If you guys get over 5,000 likes, I'll take a shot of a shitty drink just for you. Straight shot. Just bam. Pound it down, suck it up, and hate my life. Since my pain often brings out the best in you guys, I'll do it. Okay, here we go. But I'll look into what the Gomez case S. Asp. I don't know what it is. Rage Pigs. Since when do you hate the grift? No, I don't hate the grift. I hate asking people to click like. I would much rather ask them to donate $2 million. Just pledge $100 each. Rage Pigs Redux. Medication abortion is not going to make them happy, though. No, it's not. The deal with abortions is they sell the aborted fetus parts and stem cells to pharma and China and many other areas. This is why they were so protected. No. You're saying very uncomfortable things. Don't talk about that. Dribbly Bob. Abortion is green. Abortion is green. I guess, yeah. I mean, technically, right? It reduces carbon emissions. Pope Rackets Touch Me says, you ever reading those super chats from Friday? Yes. We started to, but I will get to the rest of them from the previous Friday. There's a couple left, and then Friday. Yes, I will get to them. I really want to just do it on a day stream and just do that. And I didn't have time today because of travel and stuff, but I think tomorrow I do. So we'll see. Okay, next. See Goody reminder, Nick loves getting emails, especially ones he didn't ask for. Send all your emails to rekieta.org. One day, See Goody, I'm going to introduce you to the bad end of a pickaxe. That's the wooden end going in your ass. Okay, here we go. Section 4, protecting privacy, safety, and security. To address potential heightened safety and security risks related to the provision of reproductive health care services. What heightened security risk? See, that what they think is, this doesn't make sense, by the way. Since conservatives got a victory for having Roe overturned, now conservatives will go out and grenade clinics. That's the idea that they're talking about. That once conservatives got the victory they've been looking for 50 years, now they will go murder abortion doctors and nurses and stuff. Oh, okay. All right. Just an update. We're at 4,094 likes, which means just 906 likes to go. And I will drink a shot of something fucking awful. Okay, here we go. Back to this. The Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall consider actions as appropriate and consistent with applicable law to ensure the safety of patients, providers, and third parties, and to protect the security of clinics, including mobile clinics. Wait, mobile clinic? Oh, I know what a mobile abortion clinic is. So I've seen these. Have you guys seen these? It's a truck with an extendable staircase. And they just take the woman to the top of the staircase. And there's like a boom stair or whatever, like they have at airports or whatever, and they just throw the woman down the stairs. That's the mobile abortion clinic right there. Did you hit your stomach on the way down? Jesus Christ. Pharmacies and other entities providing, dispensing, or delivering reproductive and related healthcare services. So this is great. I don't think they realize how this looks. I don't think they realize how this looks. They're going to station feds at abortion clinics for your protection. Remember, the whole point is to keep the government away from your uterus, right? So you're going to have federal agents, presumably armed federal agents, at the front doors, at the back doors, guarding the dumpsters where they throw the dead babies, inside, staring at all the women coming in to have their babies aborted. Just going to be federal fucking agents, probably like an AR or whatever, like at an airport. Homeland Security is going to be protecting you, definitely not watching you. Remember, we've tried legally to keep these fucking monsters away from you your entire life. But wait till you go. We're going to make you feel safe at your abortion with a big dude named Jerry carrying a fucking fully automatic M4 for your protection. Thanks. Good luck. To address the potential threat to patient privacy caused by the transfer and sale of sensitive health-related data and by digital surveillance related to reproductive healthcare services, and to protect people seeking reproductive health services from fraudulent schemes or deceptive practices. Oh, no. Planned Parenthood's going, wait, no. We didn't ask for this. No. No, we want to sell. No. We want to sell this data, please. And we want to sell those parts. Don't protect shit. The chair of the FTC is encouraged to consider actions as appropriate and consistent with applicable law to protect consumers' privacy when seeking information about and provision of reproductive health care services. They're not going to do their job here because, again, Planned Parenthood makes a fortune off this shit. Benjamin Blatt in the chat says probably checking and recording IDs for privacy. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall consider actions, including providing guidance under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Law, as amended by this public law, and any other statute as appropriate to strengthen the protection of sensitive information related to reproductive healthcare services and bolster patient-provider confidentiality. Which they have you sign it away. They want to sell your baby parts. It's so fucking weird. They don't talk about it. At least be honest about what you're doing. Again, if you're okay with abortion as a principle, like it really shouldn't bother you that they sell fetal parts, right? Like that shouldn't be a big deal. I don't think. Is that a different thing? Because to me, I mean, if I'm dead, if you kill me and chop me up, I don't much care what you do to my, but like if you want to sell my penis to science for like, well, how small things work in big places or something, like, I don't know. I'm not there, so I don't mind. To me, like the hush hush around the selling of baby parts is such a weird thing. It's like, I care more that you killed them than that you sold them. Now, the selling provides an incentive to not counsel people against the abortive act, right? Like that's kind of one of the arguments. Like, well, I mean, if they can get 15 grand per baby or, for the parts, it's like if you could buy a Volkswagen Beetle that doesn't run, but sell it for 15 grand in parts, then that's a good deal. You buy it for like $600, sell it for 15 grand. Brutal. Perfect. But the idea is that you'd be then encouraging people to abort, and they claim they don't do that. I may disagree. All right, anyway. Secretary of Health and Human Services shall, in consultation with the Attorney General, consider actions to educate consumers on how to best protect their health and privacy and limit the collection and sharing their sensitive health-related information. Yeah, all the 19-year-old women going in for abortions are probably going to read that full terms of service. The end user license agreement for their D&E. The Secretary of HHS shall, in consultation with the Attorney General and Chair of the FTC, consider options to address deceptive or fraudulent practices related to reproductive healthcare services, including online, and to protect access to accurate information. We wouldn't want misinformation out there about abortions. See, ignore this part. Well, deceptive or fraudulent practices would be like, they're not going to address the deceptive and fraudulent practices of abortion centers. Documented extremely thoroughly and extremely well for years. Their practices are deceptive and manipulative and fraudulent. It's shown over and over again when people go undercover. James O'Keefe, obviously a landmark pioneer in this type of journalism. They're not talking about what the clinics do. They're talking about other people's misinformation. Section 5, coordinating implementation efforts. We're almost done here. This is the last full section. Oh, no, there's a 6, but it's not long. Coordinating implementation efforts. The Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Director of the Gender Policy Council shall establish and co-chair an intra-agency task force on reproductive health care access. Additional members shall include the Attorney General and the heads of other agencies as determined by the Secretary of HHS and the Director of the Gender Policy Council. Excuse me, what? The Gender Policy Council? We have a fucking Gender Policy Council? Okay. The task force shall work to identify and coordinate activities to protect and strengthen access to essential reproductive health care services. In addition, the task force shall coordinate federal intra-agency policymaking, program development, and outreach efforts to address barriers that individuals and entities may face in seeking and providing reproductive health care services. HHS shall provide funding and administrative support as may be necessary for the performance and functions of the task force. Now, believe it or not, guys, my reading of this has a purpose. We're almost done. I know reading through this stuff can be really boring, but this is how the nation is run. And I find it to be critical. But most importantly, we're going to be using this for the purposes of talking about how this order is talked about, how it's propagandized, and how it does nothing of what they're saying. The Attorney General shall provide technical assistance as appropriate and consistent with applicable law concerning federal constitutional protections to states seeking to afford legal protection to out-of-state patients and providers who offer legal reproductive health care. So if you want to get into my state to have an abortion, we're going to try and protect you in some way. What they're worried about is that Mississippi or Missouri or Oklahoma are going to make it illegal to travel to another state to obtain an abortion, which I don't think a state can do. Kind of violates the whole idea of a union of states that recognize the decisions and protections of other states. And they should not be able to do that. If you want to drive to New Jersey to get an abortion, I guess you should be able to do that. No other state should be able to stop you. Because no other state should even be fucking asking why you're driving to New Jersey. I mean, generally, you should be asked, why in God's name are you going to New Jersey? Don't you know that Joe lives there? But other than that, there's no particular state interest in finding out where you're going or why. Fuck you. That's my answer, by the way. Where are you driving? Fuck you. That's where. They can in case of maps wanting to get laid. They have to already know. The maps have to deliver that information, and they always do. They always give that up. They're like, in the messages with the Fed that they think is a 13-year-old boy or whatever, they're like, I want to come to your house in Utah and just tear you apart. They always, those are the most disgusting fucking chats you'll ever read. I mean, I swear, I have never wanted to murder people more than when I do the when we cover the cases of the child abusers, the pedos, and they have the they always get trapped by the dumbest fucking websites. Like, the website could basically be fedsareus.com, but it's like they're seriously, I'm not joking. Like, the websites are named like sellyourchildtobigdaddy.com or whatever. And so some guy goes on there, is like, yeah, I'll find a mom who wants to let me bang her kids. And then they have the most disgusting conversation you could ever imagine with a Fed who's just lying to them the entire time. And they thought that this website was real. And you're like, how the fuck do you think this was real? But when you read those conversations, you seriously just want to take a ball peen hammer and smash them one bone at a time, starting at the fingertips. Oh, those people deserve to be fucking killed. Ugh. By the way, if you ever want to engage in those very, very dark subject, I've done a couple of those shows throughout the channel's history. They're called "How to Catch and Convict a Pedophile or a Predator." I've done a couple of them where we take specific documents from existing cases involving people either like familiar to the channel. There's this guy Tito. I actually interviewed Tito, by the way, very interesting interview. So this is like 4 years ago. This is deep lore here. But Tito was the guy who was super critical of the channel. Turned out he had a child porn conviction, covered it on the stream, covered his conviction, and then he reached out and said he would do an interview. And so interviewed him. Hard stuff to watch. Then there was another one. We covered a Twitch streamer, a smaller Twitch streamer, I think a Call of Duty streamer who kind of just fucking disappeared off the planet. Well, turns out he had caught a federal case. So we went through that one. There may have been a third one. But yeah, if you want to check those out, you got to look at, like, just go on to the Rekieta Law channel or search Rekieta Law, How to Catch and Convict. You'll find them. But they're hard shows to watch. They're really hard shows to do. Because I have certain opinions on what to do with child abusers, if you know what I mean. Just various thoughts on what to do. God, my face is itchy. I don't know what's going on here. Mr. Squiggles says, I can't find your Rekieta Law channel. You're on it. You're on it right now. But yeah, I do want to warn people. They're really hard shows to watch. They're graphic. I pull no punches. I read what's written, and they're gross. And those people deserve to be murdered. Okay, anyway. All right. So Section 6, general provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or the functions of the director of office of management and budget related to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and the subject to the availability of appropriations. Order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit substantive or procedural enforceable at law or in equity or by any party against the United States, its department agencies, or its entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. Joseph R. Biden Jr., Pedo Pete from the White House. Okay. What is... You can't find Rekieta Law? I hate you guys. Don't forget Romeo Lacoste. Yeah, that was not the same type of thing, but it was pretty funny. Let me read a couple of these. And then we got 4 super chats, and then I'll talk about why we just read that fucking horrific order. Horrific because it's boring. Laura B. Dannon, David Daleden is a hero. Okay. Don't know who that is. Tomb of Arminius. The majority of abortions are not because a woman's life is threatened. It's because that life threatens a woman's lifestyle. Yes. The overwhelming majority of abortions are just contraceptive. The Dr. Pizza one is privated. Oh my God. Turn right at the nose. Turd Ferguson says Planned Parenthood not only encourages abortions, but demand it. My mom went in for a pregnancy test. I qualify for WIC and they wouldn't let her without going through pro-abortion literature and the doctor's abortion spiel. Yeah, I genuinely think Planned Parenthood is demonic. What, again, regardless of people's stances on abortion, I think that organization is horrifying. They target blacks for extermination. I mean, that alone is like just kind of wrong, I think. I think that's wrong. A lot of people think I don't think that would be wrong. No, I think that's wrong, personally. Legal Vices. Finally. Hey, what's up, brother? Handmaid Tale time is coming. Bathe my off Jeff and bring her to me. No. Mandy Karavichus, just thought I'd let you know. I went to Whataburger on my way home and saw some new and got some new peppercorn grilled chicken sandwich and one of their new banana milkshakes. Sandwich is okay, but the shake is amazing. With a gay wrench. Thank you, Mandy. I hope, well, it sounds like you enjoyed it. I went to a place. Let me promote this place. It's in Maple Plain, Minnesota, which is in fucking nowhere. Just outside of the Twin Cities, but it's like the one of the first places outside of the Twin Cities. You know, county changes from Hennepin to Independence County, and then you're like out. You're in country at that point. It's a place called Forkless, and they have really, really good food. I got some dry rub wings, which are really good. They're not fried, I don't think. I think they bake them or broil them, but they're still good. They're super tender. The skin on the dry rub is still, it's not crispy like fried, but it's cooked. It's not like soggy. And the seasoning is terrific. I got a Cuban wrap, which was pulled pork because it's barbecue. Pulled pork, mustard, pickles. They do a Gouda mac and cheese, which is really fucking good. They have excellent different barbecue pizzas. Check it out. Forkless. No one knows where that is. Somebody in this chat knows where Maple Plain, Minnesota is, and they might go through there. Some people are from the Twin Cities or around it. I would strongly suggest Forkless. It's a really small place. Their ribs are really good too. Hard to find anything barbecue related in Minnesota that's good. That place is actually good. Seagoody says, those How to Catch and Convict a Pedophile and the Erosion of the Fourth Amendment streams are some of my favorites. I like the heavy topics. I'm fucked up throwing up the episodes in chat. Well, there you go. Seagoody's doing the work. Terrific. Thank you, Seagoody. Thanks for something. Okay, why did I just read this fucking boring executive order? No, Mandy, I don't crucify people for not knowing what a kolache is. A kalash? A kalesh? A kalesh? What are... Sana malalala, welcome to Kuwait. I sell you kalesh. No, Mandy. Stop being racist. A kolache is an Eastern European pastry wrapped around either meat or fruit, preferably meat, because it's delicious. Go eat them. You'll like them. They have dick-shaped things that taste good. Victoria, welcome to Paralegal Status. Thank you. Okay, so why did I... So anyway, why did I read this executive order? Here's the deal. This thing is reported as Joe Biden issues executive order to protect abortion after Roe versus Wade. This is the propaganda machine at work. Nowhere in this order is abortion protected in any way after Roe versus Wade. State law trumps every single provision of that order. There's no federal protection of abortion that occurs in that order. There is nothing to keep abortion clinics open inside a state that has made abortion illegal. There's nothing to give federal abortion access, for example, like you could hypothetically, they could try and say abortions on military bases are allowed. Potentially, they could try that. None of that exists in this fucking executive order. And I just want to point that out because if you've seen the news reporting on this, the impression that you may have gotten is that this order somehow combats the Supreme Court's ruling. It does not in any way do that. And they can't. They can't. They will try and are trying to make it federal. Yep. The problem is to regulate it federally, they're going to have to regulate it as a commercial activity, which will be really fucking interesting for them to try. They have to say it's a commercial activity that's regulated under the Commerce Clause. And then, part of the lie of abortion gets exposed right there. They have to make it a business product, but it's sold as healthcare. So I just wanted to, but that's why I did it. I wanted to bring up the sort of misreporting and misrepresentation around abortion. The hardest part about the abortion discussion is getting past the lie and just having an honest conversation about it. You're killing a baby and you might be fully okay with that. It's actually, like, as horrible as this sounds, but it's actually okay to take the position that killing a baby is justifiable in some circumstances. There's plenty to suggest that we would kill other people justifiably in some circumstances. But I think what makes people uncomfortable is the idea that it might not be justifiable in this instance. But hypothetically, it could be. I don't think it is. But I think people are uncomfortable with that question. Because if it's not okay, how do you support it? Nick, you're wrong. What am I wrong about? That's what I'm curious. I want to know what I'm wrong about. States on the case. I agree. He says, she says, as long as it's within whatever law of the day, and then it's between you and God. Yeah. And importantly, this, people always misunderstand me, and I'll say it again. I personally don't condemn women who have had abortions. I often empathize with them and I have compassion for them. One, because they're at a time in their life where they thought that a baby would be such an imposition that they had to make an incredibly difficult and trying choice. At least I hope it was a difficult and trying choice for them to make. And two, because I think that they will have periods in their life where they strongly regret their decision. Even if they ultimately conclude that it's the right decision that they made, I think there will be periods where they really question that. And I think that questioning and that doubt can cause long-term damage for people. I don't think that's limited to abortion. I think that's lots of major decisions. But I don't tend to condemn them. One, it's not really valuable or profitable to condemn people for things that they have done. That's different for like criminal punishments and stuff like that. But just in general, for me, it's not that valuable. Like, how do I talk to someone if my opening is, I think you were horrible for what you did? It's not really that beneficial for the conversation. So I tend to not do that. People get me wrong just because I disagree with abortion as a protectable right. They think that I like hate women who have them. I don't. The women I know who have had abortions deeply, deeply regret them. They deeply regret them years later, and it leaves significant emotional and sometimes physical scars. The fact that you can't really talk about those subjects because it's so propagandized makes me suspicious about the conversations at all. But again, It doesn't make me hate them. It makes me feel bad for them. Johan Naxos says the real reason why women are so against it is because they would have to then have agency and be held accountable for their poor mating choices. Then they can't make Buddy pay for Chad's good time. I think some women, yeah, absolutely. The weird thing, though, is a lot of the women who are in support of abortion are in no danger of getting pregnant. Those are hideous fucking Gila monsters that no one wants to get into. And by Gila, I mean Klein.